The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the webinar series organized by Festo Middle East and Northeast Africa. This is Nizar speaking from Festo office in Amman and my colleague Christian from Dubai office. As most of you already know that jointly with Festo team in Dubai, we do provide sales, technical and logistical support to our customers in MENA region. Today we will present to you the new two-wire positioner and will go through the features and how it will be beneficial for you to optimize your installation. Also, my colleague Christian, in his part, will discuss further how we can support you more to improve your the service life of your installation and by understanding the air quality and using the correct air preparation unit which covers the installation requirements. Before we start, I would like to ask you to adjust your device audio. If you have any question, please feel free to drop your question in the question box. We will answer them directly during the session, or we will get back to you after the webinar ends. Poll questions will be posted during the session. We kindly ask you to select the most suitable answer for you. Industrial automation is our expertise. Mainly, it's presented by factory automation and process automation. In factory automation, for example, we control the motion, for example, gripping a certain product, detecting the position. It can be done through a wide range of Festo products, for example, cylinders, solenoids, valves, air preparation units, and so on. In process automation, mainly we are controlling the process itself. For example, mixing of fluids by measuring and visualizing the process itself. So in Festo, we are focusing on wide range of industry segments, for example, food and packaging, chemical, mineral processing, water, wastewater, power and energy. For today's seminar, we will be focusing more on where we can find the controlling of the processes, air preparation, and how we can apply these technologies in your applications. Which leads us to the first poll question. In what type of industry segments are you mainly active? Chemical, oil and gas, water industry, heavy industry, or other industries? Poll question now will pop up on your screen. Please select the most suitable answer for you. So now we are collecting answers. Please, just by clicking on the answer itself, then it will give us the answer, and we can continue with our seminar. I'm sharing the results. We have, let's say, a good mix in our seminar between chemical, oil and gas, water industry, heavy industry, and other industry segments. Moving on to the our presentation or our seminar today. In our agenda today's session, we will start with a new modular and flexible standard for control valve application, the extremely user-friendly and with integrated diagnostics and flexible to install positioner, the two-wire hard positioner CMSH, which help us to improve the commissioning and service for your application. The second topic will be how we can support you improving the service life of your installation, which will be presented by my colleague Christian from Dubai office. Most of us
Nizar, can you change the slides? Because we still see the quick poll results.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I think now you see my screen.
Yes, very clear. Thank you.
So let's go back to the slides. In our agenda for today's session, we will start the new modular and flexible standard for control valve application, the extremely user-friendly with integrated diagnostics and flexible to install positioner. Now we are talking about the two-wire hard positioner, CMSH, which helps you to improve the commissioning and service for your application. The second topic will be how we can support you to improve the service life of your installation, which will be presented by our colleague from Dubai office, Mr. Christian Van Boxtel. Most of us familiar with the three-wire standard positioner. In our case, we are talking about the CMSX for general application to handle basic application, whether it's rotary or linear movement. But to address more demanding application when it comes to safety, ethics, diagnostics, partial stroke testings, emergency shutdown function, we present the CMSH, the Smart Digital Electro-Pneumatic Positioner with hard communication, and which can be used with both linear or rotary, single or double acting actuator, small or big size process valves. The CMSH, it's completing our lineup for positioners in the field of process automation. Coming to the features of the CMSH, the CMSH is 4 to 20 milliamp loop powered two-wire device. Can you hear us? Please, if you can hear me, let me know.
Here in Dubai, loud and clear.
Yeah. Coming into the features of the CMSH, the CMSH is 4 to 20 milliamp loop power two-wire device. No additional power supply is required in this case. This feature is required in many industry segments, and now it's available in our product range. Also, freely selectable fail-safe function, whether it's closed, open, or fail in place. It ensures that actuators will travel to the safe position you already have predefined in your selection. For the operation and environment conditions, it's explosion protection or protected and can reach up to functional safety level 2 in redundant solution or designs. The smart positioner, it's IP66, IP67 protection class. And for the ambient temperature, it can handle from -40 degree up to 80 degrees Celsius, which makes it suitable in harsh environment conditions. Suitable with this type of positioner, it can be suitable to use with single or double acting actuators, linear or quarter turn actuators. With this feature, let's say you determine how CMSH works by simply using the different pneumatic sub-base or end plate. So by selecting the correct end plate, then you can determine the function of the CMSH. Also, the CMSH can be connected to an external position sensor in order to have easier access to the positioner, or for extremely ambient condition, such as continuous vibration in the operation. Moving on to some more highlights on the CMSH. This positioner also supports standardized mounting interfaces for all common quarter turn actuators and linear actuators. Due to the integrated high dynamic positioning system with high air capacity, which can reach up to 400 liters per minute for the single acting, the CMSH allows us for a fast and precise control of large or small actuators without any additional need of extra instrumentation, for example, the volume booster. Modularity of the connection plates, as mentioned earlier, determines the function of the type or the function of the CMSH, which will we see later on the next slide. We'll go much in detail in the type of the end plates that we have. Also, in case if you need a faster response of the process valve, or you want to use a bigger actuator, the CMSH can have direct interaction with a booster, which makes it easier to control these applications. Coming on to the end plates, as mentioned earlier, only the pneumatic connection plate determine the function of the CMSH or the type of the CMSH. The connection plates is available in different options. For example, single acting or double acting, fail safe, close, open, or fail in place. We can select also with or without pressure gauge. Connection, let's say threads different with it, whether it's metric or NPT threads. With this modularity of the end plates, we minimize the inventory cost for you by having the universal positioner design and different connection plates which suits your application. So having this modularity in the CMSH helps us to reduce the stock, the cost of inventory. Moving on to the display interface, the CMSH have clear display rotatable reading direction for any installation with a convenient 4-button navigation, efficient and easy commissioning with setup wizard for most relevant application parameters. For example, quick start, we can select the language. Also, we can select the control mode if it's a linear or rotary actuator, fast or precise control as well. Also, it's suitable for use in safety-related circuits up to safety integrity level T2. These options guarantee, talking about the safety-related circuits, these options guarantee safe venting of the actuator. As a result, the process valves moves to the fail position, which is already predefined by selecting the correct end plate. To increase the process reliability, also we can have optional I/O modules can be added to our positioner, for example, input or output modules, 4 to 20 milliamp position feedback. Even, for example, if the positioner fails by selecting independent limit switch, we can have a position feedback for the process valve. In this case, we are increasing our safety level. For example, we can select inductive slot type, initiator limit contacts, or mechanical limit contacts. Moving on to the, let's say, commissioning and configuration. Commissioning and configuration can be done on the local display itself, which we, let's say, saw in the previous slide, using the user-friendly software menu, or via remote access using the EDD-based or FDT-based transfer. By transferring the information also as well to the main DCS system and assist management tools, even provide us more information about the process and enable quick and predictive maintenance for the process valve. This will increase the availability and the efficiency of the plant and the system itself. Now we will see how intuitive and user-friendly the local display is by sharing this small video. So now we came to know how to do how easier or user friendly the local display is, and how we can do the, let's say, the commissioning for it. Moving on with the next slides. Also, the CMSH also offer, for example, the diagnostics. We are talking now about diagnostics. It offers integrated self-monitoring and diagnostic for increasing the system availability. We have two different types of diagnostics. The standard self-diagnostics, which for the device itself, for example, the position, temperature, pressure, counter for the movements, and stroke, for example, and direction changes. Also, we have intelligent diagnostics function with integrated pressure sensor for monitoring, for example, the breakaway pressure of the process valve or leakage detection of the complete system. For the status feedback, it can be seen through the display or through the heart interface as simple diagnostic data. So anybody can understand the diagnostic data and determine the, let's say, the issue. For example, if we have air leakage, so we can understand that we are facing some issues. So in this video, in the upcoming video, I will share another video. We will see the monitoring and the diagnostics, which gives us more information about the process and enable quick and predictive maintenance for the process valve itself. So, moving on to the next part of our agenda today, and now I will give the mic to Christian from Dubai office to present to us how to easily improve the service life of your installation.
Really good. Thank you very much, Nizar. I hope I'm loud and clear and everybody understands me well. It's a pleasure to have this next session with you after the introduction of our new positioner concept. I think we have a very interesting package here, and especially the modular design, the flexibility in different applications, rotary or linear. It's very attractive, and looking forward with you to implement and get your feedback also about this product. But now the question of, we like to share our knowledge and expertise with you, how to protect these equipments in your facility. And we as Festo, when we go over sites, when we are questioned to do commissioning activities, we see sometimes that pneumatic installations are not 100% well managed. We mainly see this because of the causes or the symptoms, and also we can normally, in normal conditions, easily solve that. So in this part of the presentation, we briefly go over the basis of a compressed air generation, how to improve the air quality, and also how to apply this on the applications itself. So I will move to the next slide. I have my control. Yes. So in general, what are the basic components of a compressed air system? And also for this, we would like to zoom out on the entire system itself, because many times people are only looking into a compressor, or only to the pressure vessel, or the air grid, which is available. But at the end of the day, it's a system of connected components together with different tie-offs into a facility. This can be a water treatment plant, a chemical facility, or also a food production location. And we just briefly, in a very simple way, we'd like to explain that coming from the main components, which is the main component itself, the compressor, there are some air dryers in between. Sometimes these can be integrated in the air compressor. There are some first water separators. We have some pressure vessels to hold a certain amount of air, but not only that, also it's used to cool down the air, especially for some larger installations, and have some additional safety. There are some condensate drains, because during this process water is collected. There are certain filters, coarse filters, up to the air dryers to reduce the temperature of the air, but also mainly to remove the water from the compressed air that is caused during the compression stage. Multiple filtrations on items 9, 10, and 11. And then also we have some electrical control of dryers. It's portable and possible, especially for energy saving applications. And then of course we have the air grid with all the tie-off connections into your facility. Then last but not least, all the water which is collected during the pre-filtration and the conditioning steps needs to be get rid of. So in many cases there are some possibilities for oil, so there might also be an oil water separator, so you can easily dump your condensate water to a sewage or a sewage line, and the oil can be separated from that. So when we focus so much on the compressor, although Festo is not a compressor manufacturer, the compressed air is the power source to our components and equipment. And typically when compressed air is not having the correct standard, we see this in our products. And we can trace this back to the root cause. And also as a refresher of this webinar session where we want to share this with you is what happens in the compressor. And actually what goes is that we take the compressor, nothing else is a compress unit, which takes 8 pieces of air, or 8 volume pieces, at an atmospheric pressure, and it compresses it to a higher pressure class. Everybody can understand that. However, there are some cons on that. Is that when you take ambient temperature, let's say 25 degrees, with a relative humidity, let's say 80%, this can differ country per country, also sometimes on altitudes. There is a humidity and also an amount of grams of water which can be in 1 cubic meter. It's not only water that is collected or water vapor, it's also dirt particles that can be trapped. And there's sometimes some oil damp or aerosols of oil can be in the air that are withdrawn into the compressor system. Think about dirt particles, can be dust, can be silica, it depends also on the location where your facility is. But because you take 8 units and you compress them to one single unit, which is 8 times the concentration, you will see that you will get a significant amount of additional parameters, for example, of the absolute humidity. Also with compression, the pressure and the temperature, they are increasing. Although the relative humidity of the compressed air is not going too much higher, but this is given at a certain temperature. Also, the dirt particles is now a factor 8 higher, 4 million pieces. And depending on the type of compressor, sometimes you can have a fixed amount of oil that is freely available, or can be even higher when you have an oil lubricated compressor. What does that mean for our system? Is that at the end of the day, the system of the installation will have some air cooling in place. It might be an additional cooler, or even in certain cases, the pressure vessel and the piping system cause for the cooling. And because the temperature will be reduced from, let's say, 90 degrees to 35 degrees temperature, the additional water vapor that is present in the compressed air has to participate out, which means that you can have a full humidity, 100% concentration of vapor. But because of this big temperature difference, a lot of water also needs to participate out. This is besides the fact that you also remove a little bit of the particles with the water, so that's a good thing. But still, oil, mainly for an oil-free or a lubricated compressor, is something which is still maintained. What happens? And also I would like to, Nizar, can you start the video? Because this is a real life situation when the compressed air conditioning is not in place, and you will see issues with that in the field. Here we see an installation with the customer where actually the supply line of air to the filter regulator is filled with water of condensate. Maybe we will share the video with you, but the point is, it was a transparent tube and there was fully filled with water, and you only saw some small air bubbles going through. And this water is having an impact on the performance of your equipment, because you're not having a pneumatic system anymore. In this worst case scenario, actually, you're having a hydraulic system, and this water comes with your pneumatic components. And even in certain cases, it can come to a product. Let's say if you're active in the food industry, this water can touch your product, because what happens is that there will be a venting of a solenoid valve that will be somewhere in your machine where this water can come out. So that's why we always emphasize and stress on the right air quality. So how do we do that? And that is the next slide here. Okay, so what do we see the results in incorrect air preparation? So when there are filters and filter regulators, typically there are these beakers inside the installation where there are some side glasses. So we actually can see the number of water which is condensated. These beakers are installed as a last resort to trap any type of condensated water throughout the process. And here you also see it's not only the water, also it's very orange. So for example, if you have a piping system which contains some metal parts, over time this water can start for corrosion, and this starts to block the filter elements, which is then on the same cause not able to have a proper filtration of particles anymore. So for us, these are always signs of an installation. Although it might seem working properly, and pneumatics is very forgiving, it still can have some issues. This water can be drained, sometimes in the bottom of a drain, manually or automatic, but you would like to remove this water. And this always starts at the cause of the installation. And we also received the request sometimes from customers, can we have a water separator installed in my line? This is only a bandage management. because at the beginning, what we learned from the compressed air cycle is that the water is not removed by a proper drying stages at the beginning of the process. So eventually it will participate out somewhere. The same thing is on particles. Here we see a cutout of a valve body where you see clearly the particles on the inside of the housing. So these particles, especially when they come here to our seals, can have an effect on the reliability of the sealing. Or sometimes it can even block some components, because these tolerances we include in our products, or sometimes the grease we are using, is not considered to have these particles inside. Same on oil, for example. Here we see a cutout of a valve, where you also see, even with the microscope level, a lot of particles, and also there's a very oily substance. We as Festo, we always use a grease instead of an oil. So this should not be here. This impacts the function of the valve and the life cycle of the facility. So here we see, what does it result? It results in unplanned standstills of your equipment, or you can have less reliability. The second thing, it can generate leakages of loss of energy, because a leakage of compressed air at the end of the day is a loss of energy which you generated during the compressor stage, because particles can result in bad sealing of your seals in your valve body. Additional wear and tear. That's of course obvious, because the particle can result in an abrasive movement. But moreover, and this if you are an equipment provider or an OEM, if you are not having the right correct air, it can also result in a bad reputation for you as an OEM or system integrator, or maybe for a maintenance department where you're not responsible for the air quality, but at the same time you see a lot of issues happening in the facility where you can have some questions about. So that's why we as Festo always would like to support our customers. And there's a very easy standard we would like to refer to. If we see here, and this is an ISO code. So according to ISO 8573, which is the last update in 2010, we can actually identify the number of particles, the amount of water and the oil within a compressed air system. So if you take our Festo components, we always refer to the compressed air standard according to ISO class. And for that, you can measure these items. So for example, water in compressed air systems can be managed and measured. The same as for oil, or also the same for particles. And what happens is, of course, we as Festo, we have suitability for our products and our life cycle for this middle section, which is a very forgiving and very robust installation. The higher the equipment and the more requirements you're going to ask for the pneumatic components, the more expensive it's going to be, because you will add more stages of filtration and more resistance. And that needs to be overcome with typically more energy. So the other thing is that the possible causes for contamination in a network, and that's the other topic. Maybe you have a very well arranged compressor installation, but there might be some situations in life, because even with a new installation, people believe that always the filtration is done upfront of the compressor, but not inside the field, because the idea is that there is already a filter in place. Well, especially with systems which are a little bit older, sometimes there are certain activities or certain situations that happen in time. For example, over time, you can collect a lot of particles. It is because you will filter out an amount of particles, but not all of them will be filtered out. So these might be settled inside your system over time. Also, sometimes there are different temperature ranges. If you have a certain point where you have a facility where a colder area and a warm area, the cold area might happen that the water vapor in the compressed air participates out of the compressed air due to the ambient temperature. Sometimes we see that condensate drains are not working, or compressed air systems are being expanded over time. A person puts an angle grinder in the compressed air systems to make a few tie-offs. Those small metal parts which happen during making the modifications will end up in the system. They cannot really be fully cleaned out. And over time, they can cause issues. Also, sometimes the air compressor is failing and it's consuming much more oil than predicted. Also, this can create issues like the same as for oil, is that in the old days, now we're talking about the 1980s, early 90s, a lot of products were in compressed air systems were provided with oil dosing points. This is no longer needed because all the pneumatic components and also for Festo are provided with greasing for the entire life cycle. We call it life cycle grease. So no additional lubrication is needed. But once oil hits the pneumatic components, it washes out this grease, and then you need to maintain this. And then it's not an installation of design and forget anymore. You need to keep maintaining it, and the efforts are going to be higher. So good compressed air quality have a very good impact and can impact your amount of maintenance needed. Sometimes we see bypass valves for filters to replace them, and at the same time people did not forget to close them at the end of the servicing of the filter units. So then over a period of time, much air is entered into the system without any type of filtration. But also sometimes corrosion happens in the vessels. Also, they need to be inspected over time. So, and there might be many other causes which create over time some issues to your system. So why do we say this? Because here in the generation part, you have a lot of investments, especially on the capex. But in the pneumatic part in the facility, there are some areas as well where we can also have a really easy insurance policy, more or less. So if we go to the next slide. With the air supply is coming from the field with individual tubes, and there's a direct connection with the compressor. So the actuators have no any type of filtration protection. What would we recommend? If we use a filter regulator, like our stainless steel unit, because this is apparently an outdoor application, it can be used in all types of weather conditions with a high corrosion resistance. We can add a 40 to 50 micron filter range at the outlet of these headers. Maybe we can even include, instead of having 3 headers, a single header with a small outlet header on the outside of the filter regulator. By doing that, all these pneumatic components, the actuators, but also the solenoid valves, are protected against any type of particles that might come in over time. Or if some moisture participates out of the air, at least you have a drain bowl, which at least takes out the first hit of air with water coming into the system. The other part, sorry, I go a little bit too quick. The other part is you can optionally add an on-off valve to the system. If maintenance needs to be conducted, you can put a bypass valve with also a safe relief valve function, so that all the compressed air from this system, in which is stored in the actuators, can be safely vented out. And the maintenance person can put his lockout, tag-out safety lock on the valve. So during time of operation, this system is safe to work on. Instead of having an individual part, this is, for example, a solution we provide as Festo. It's a turnkey design with the filter regulator, pressure filter bowl with a 40 or 5 micron filter, and a manual on-off valve, where the pressure on the side of the filter regulator can always be vented into this silencer. So this is one of the options we can do, and it's easy to install, and it protects the service life. This investment is negligible compared to the costing of actuators and the performance it has on the butterfly valves in this event. And of course, and this is something also, when you install filter regulators, once in a while, the filters need to be replaced. It's very funny is that with Festo, we sell hundreds, thousands of filter regulators, but the replacement of the cartridge itself is also something which needs to be taken into consideration. This is another topic where we've seen a control cabinet, a very unorganized, non-maintained control cabinet, of which Festo has been requested to improve a little bit. Here you see there's no control, there's influences of maybe also some water, of oil on the tubing, and it's really badly maintained. So how would we approach that? Again, we will start with the same basis as the valve terminal with a similar valve count. But the second part we add in the control cabinet is our filter regulator. It stabilizes the pressure, but it also adds an additional level of filtration so that the components after this unit are protected from any type of particles and first hits of condensated water in case it's happening. In terms of safety, the good thing of this unit, because it's a control cabinet, we added this automatic condensate drain. So over time, when condensate is building up in this beaker, it will have a special flotter device where it automatically will be pushed outside the control cabinet. So all the components inside stay nice and clean. And the maintenance staff has less focus to think about emptying beakers of this filter regulator over time. So it's less headache and less time needed for operating your system. Last but not least, we add the manual on-off control valve, again for a safety aspect, to have the operator available to put his lockout tag on it or key, just to ensure that when he's working on the system, nobody else can override it and he can have some dangerous situations. So where to start? Because I can imagine you have a lot of questions that might come up. First of all, for example, how to install, what is the oil content, particles, airflow capacity, how to configure, or what about the compressor package? And what is typical air quality? We as Festo, we help you a little bit with addressing these topics. But at the same time, also some other topics. You need to think about, how do I define my air quality? Listen for leakages in the system. Also check your filter bowls regularly. So these are actions actually you can address and you can implement in your organization and focus on doing that. With Festo, we make some documentations of this as well, and we set some standards which might help you also in your day-to-day work. So, for example, how to define an air quality, what type of filtration classes needs to be added, what type of industry I'm in. So this overview, which is part of a 23-page document, which we'll be sharing with the participant of this session, will help you to define the right filtering class and also the relations to the amount of air that will be provided, because the more filters you're adding, the less air output will be there unless you don't size up. But of course, we can also imagine if you want to share and use our experiences as Festo, of course, you can always write an email and contact us on this attached email address, because it's always, in terms of discussions, we can help you to support you and think about the best possible solution within your facility. So also this for me, this brings me to the last part of today in our poll question. And maybe Nizar, you can start it. What was most interesting for you? Maybe you have both options, because then also we can follow up with you and discuss how our knowledge and support can benefit in your installation, both on the smart positioner with the CMSH and the modular concept, or on improving your air quality design with filter regulators, defining standards, and interesting technologies for control cabinets eventually. Thank you very much, and looking forward for your answers. I think we're doing good. I'm not sure if everybody voted, Nizar.
Yes, they are voting now.
Really good?
Yep.
Wait a little bit.
I will show also the answers.
I think it's a clear one.
Yes, we have 6% voted for the CMSH, and we have 18% for the easy to improve the service life of your installation, and 53% for both products or both presented in our agenda, and 24% for other process application in Festo portfolio.
Very good, very good. So, of course, I haven't checked also in between. We don't have too many questions currently pending.
Yes.
But of course, we will be contacting everybody, of course, with the presentation after this session. I think also to our last slide, it's good to mention, of course, for people who want to understand more about the remaining portfolio of Festo for the process industry, but also for our factory automation, you can always follow us on festo.ae and festo.flow, where we more looking into the products and the portfolio we're having. For frequent updates about our applications, activities, case stories, we share this frequently on our LinkedIn page. Also like this webinar session, but also many others, we're following on YouTube with Festo. And of course, always available, despite the topic of the question, always our general email address, info_mina@festo.com is available to contact us. It was a pleasure to have you today. We're always looking forward to get your feedback and to think about your applications. And today, I believe these two topics we managed to do so. So from my side, a big thank you. And maybe also Nizar, you would like to close the topic today?
Yes, so thank you for today's session. We already introduced the CMSH and how it's beneficial for you to control your application, and how you let's say benefit from the application itself, and how you can proceed with for example end plates based on your application needs, and for the air preparation, and how let's say we start from the beginning, from the air generation up to the product itself, and what are the process behind clean air. I would like to thank you also to join us today, that you already joined us today, and looking forward to meet you again in different webinar sessions. And if you have any question, please feel free to contact us through the shown channels that we have. And keep tuned and follow us on the LinkedIn page, so you can have continuous update on our let's say next activity. Thank you for joining us, and looking forward to meet you again.
Thank you, and have a beautiful day. Bye-bye.